Welcome, Chosen X. You step through a weathered gate into a landscape that remembers storms, and you feel the hush after an argument between sky and earth. This entrance asks for recognition. There is a steady ember beneath the lick of doubt inside you. It has held integrity. The invitation is to tend that ember without hurry and to learn a patience that is not complacency. Begin by quieting the habitual conversation in your mind. Allow the cadence of your breath to outlast the chatter of fear. In that expanded space you will notice a ledger of small truths stored in your bones. These are practical directions disguised as memory. You will uncover how to meet sudden loss, how to refuse easy anger, how to hold steady while plans unravel. Those acts are the grammar of your inner compass. The world compresses and squeezes. Pressure exposes what material you are made of. When circumstances fold against you, do not assume that pressure is punishment. It may be a forge. Resist the impulse to flee. Instead, observe the contour of your reactions. Which ones protect you and which constrict? This discernment will teach you where to allocate courage and where to cultivate repair. You will encounter nights that seem to own the sky. In those hours, attend modest rituals. Make a small promise and keep it. Speak a truth to no one but yourself. Put a bowl of water where it will catch morning light. These small offerings anchor you. When giants of uncertainty arrive, you will not be unmoored because you have practiced fidelity to the minor claims on your time and attention. Solitude is a tool when wielded with care. Use it to study the shape of your longings and the origin of your fears. Do not confuse being alone with being lonely. Solitude clarifies. It creates a map that reveals which territories you have avoided. The work of transformation asks you to enter those territories with curiosity instead of accusation. Expect to meet internal resistance dressed as urgency. Those moments want you to believe that speed equals wisdom. Slow down. Ask the pressing question, what does this insistence want me to forget? Often a rush is an invitation to repeat old errors. When you refuse the quick fix, you open room for strategies that accumulate grace. Led with small kindnesses. The world honors repeated generosity more than dramatic gestures. When you apologize without justification and repair what you can, you demonstrate a stamina that is contagious. Influence grows from reliable practice. People will notice the steadiness of your presence and begin to trace a path toward it. When clarity arrives, accept it like an unexpected lamp. Translate it into a direct act. Small decisions sustained over time form architecture. One clear choice today simplifies the next. Build these choices into a rhythm until they carry you through days when reason feels thin. You will meet others who carry bruised brightness. Approach them with skillful curiosity. Their defenses are often adaptations. Your role is not to fix but to witness and to hold space. Listening without solving is a form of courage that repairs in ways words cannot. This is how alliances form and how isolated embers become a ring of warmth. Be vigilant with your self-narrative. Stories shape your capabilities more reliably than wishes. Name scarcity and then redefine it in narrow terms you can practice. Replace catastrophic scripts with serviceable phrases that invite action. This shift in language will reroute energy into creation rather than complaint. By the close of this opening passage, you will feel an edge of calm and a demand to act. The path forward is neither spectacle nor retreat. It is steady tending. Plant your palm upon the center of what matters to you. Guard it with tenderness. Feed it with labor. Surround it with limits that preserve its integrity. In this way you prepare a home where your influence can arrive and where your life can begin to answer the summons you heard at the gate. A different kind of tempest arrives now, not to break you but to shape you into a sharper instrument of purpose. You cross a threshold where distortions gather and truth must be separated from rumor. The mind will offer bargains disguised as solutions, and the heart will replay old losses as if they are fresh. Resist the tidy promise of avoidance. Treat the trials as a field of study. Notice what habits rise first when an alarm appears and where your energy leaks away. There will be tests that seem unfair because their contours refuse your expectations. A companion may turn away when you need warmth. Projects you invested in may collapse. Authorities may dismiss what you say. These events are not empty cruelties. They are the curriculum of maturity. When you accept the lesson without theatrics, you shorten its duration and deepen your retention. Practice witnessing your reactions. Name the sensation as it mounts. Is it tightening or flattening? A compulsion to perform or a quiet retreat? When you label the impulse, you create a sliver of freedom between stimulus and response. Use that crack to choose more skillful behavior. A single deliberate breath can break patterns that have directed you for years. Cultivate small rituals that anchor you in upheaval. Rituals need not be ornate. They can be aligning posture before the day begins, breathing with intention, or writing 2 honest lines about what you will refuse today. These disciplines supply a backbone when the spine feels flimsy. They build a scaffold to hold the shape of your courage until it becomes reliable. Expect internal saboteurs to rise with persuasive logic. They will whisper that you must hurry, compromise, or conceal what matters. This voice often wears the mask of practicality. Answer it with plain questions. What will this gain cost you? What will this choice train you to become? When answers reveal a mismatch with your deeper aims, choose differently. Choosing differently rewires default reactions into deliberate moves. You will confront personal myths that have quietly instructed your behavior since childhood. Some myths cast you as perpetually insufficient. Others insist that self-protection must trump generosity. Locate these narratives and interrogate them with curiosity. Ask when they began and whether they still serve the person you are becoming. Replace worn axioms with provisional rules you can test for a week. Be generous in your interpretation of others until evidence persuades you otherwise. Misunderstanding often precedes change. When you assume benevolence, you widen the possibility of repair. This posture does not make you naive. It makes you a capable negotiator in human terms. You learn to listen for the thread that connects tension to hope. When anxiety arrives, observe its architecture. Anxiety likes to build scaffolds of impending catastrophe. Dismantle one beam at a time. Ask whether the imagined scenario contains a feasible timeline and whether your resources match the claim. Break the fantasy into testable propositions and address the smallest next step. Completion of that step will often dissolve the larger danger. Remember, endurance does not require relentless force. Endurance often looks like tender persistence. It appears as steady attention to what matters, a refusal to allow urgency to eclipse importance, and a capacity to reset after a misstep. Celebrate small returns and keep a ledger of progress. Over months you will compile evidence that counters the narrative of futility. Finally, hold an ethic of repair toward yourself. You will make errors that sting. Own them quickly, remedy what can be remedied, and then practice the gentleness you would extend to a friend. This pattern teaches others how to treat you, and it strengthens the muscle of reconciliation inside you. Through these practices, the trials that once threatened to shatter your center will anneal you into a vessel capable of holding more radiances. Keep tending onward. You step farther along the path and the silence rearranges itself into a voice. It is not loud or commanding. It arrives as a felt certainty, an axis you can lean toward when doubt claims the hour. This presence speaks not in slogans but in precise invitations. It asks you to remember how you solved smaller cruelties, how you stayed open when grief wound tight around your throat, how you bore someone else without collapsing under the sum of their need. Each memory becomes evidence, not nostalgia. Listen to that internal counsel the way you would attend to an instrument that must be tuned. Notice cadence, register, and texture. Sometimes the guidance will arrive as a question. You will find it easier to respond than to obey because your condition is not submission but alignment. Your assent is a decision repeatedly renewed, not a single dramatic moment. There will be moments when the guidance asks you to surrender control of outcomes you cannot steer. That is not defeat. It is skillful delegation to a wisdom that can see wider angles than the anxious mind. Let go of the notion that every rescue is yours to perform. Conserving energy for acts only you can carry is a strategic kindness to both yourself and those dependent on you. The voice will test your language. It will prompt you to speak less and to listen deeper. When you respond with fewer words and clearer intention, your impact concentrates. The economy of expression becomes your ally. Choose phrases that can hold consequences and let them land without explaining them into weakness. Expect your moral imagination to be refined. You will be offered choices where the easier route feels like safety but carries long-term erosion. Courage will appear as a posture you practice the same way athletes practice form. Repetition rather than heroics creates muscle memory. Those quietly earned habits will show up when pressure mounts. Your body will be implicated in this audition. Keep attention on sleep, nourishment, and movement. Spiritual work that ignores physiology grows brittle. Treat physical maintenance as a fidelity claim to your deeper commitments. When you honor the vessel that houses your commitments, your capacity to sustain others increases proportionally. You will witness small miracles that do not require public notice. A gesture healed a conversation. A look diffused tension. A timely apology reopened trust. Those events are the currency of transformation. Count them. They register as momentum far more stable than spectacle. Companionship now has new parameters. Your companions will not always be fellow travelers. Some will be mirrors of traits you wish to refine. Others will be teachers who arrive briefly to offer a lesson you could not learn alone. Honor transience without minimizing the depth of what passes through your orbit. Practice sacred curiosity toward yourself. Ask not only what you want but why you want it. The excavations you make beneath desire reveal whether pursuit will sustain you or hollow you. This is how intention becomes an architecture rather than a wish. When the guidance becomes hard, create a council of small rituals. A journal, a timed walk, and a commitment to one deliberate action each dawn. These modest structures keep you aligned when circumstances traffic in chaos. They anchor attention and conserve will. Finally, remember that the interior voice is generous. It will not demand perfection. It will offer terms for repair and avenues for reconciliation. Your work is not to earn love by relentless performance but to become trustworthy in ways that allow genuine belonging. Trustworthiness grows from consistent returns to truth. In the space you are building, clarity will gather like light in a bowl. Let it warm you. Let it sharpen the edges of choice, and then act. Each precise step transforms a private fidelity into a public gift. The voice has spoken. Move with its cadence and let the consequence of your life be proof of its counsel. A ring of lanterns kindles where you step, and the hush that followed solitary practice breaks into an answering chorus. The place that once housed only your reservations now holds witnesses. Their arrival is not a clamor but a constellation of steady hands and patient gazes. Each person carries a small story stitched into the lining of their palms, tokens of trials they refuse to let define them. In this circle you learn how private fidelity becomes public architecture, how dependable acts accumulate into durable change. You discover that leadership here requires humility rather than spectacle. To lead is to cultivate soil, to tend brittle trust until it becomes a bed for new life. Your authority will grow from patient listening as much as from instruction. When you give people space to speak and then honor the friction of truth without rushing to soften it, the tenor of the room shifts. Folks begin to lean toward honesty because they expect it will be received with steady hands. Practical disciplines sustain collective momentum. Name one aim everyone can test in their next action. Shared aims reduce leakage and clarifying language keeps effort aligned. Create rituals that mark the transition from noise into intention. A short bell, a deliberate breath, the passing of a small light from one palm to another will build a rhythm that resists erosion. These customs are pragmatic scaffolding that preserves integrity across days when attention fragments. You will encounter disagreement. Expect it to arise from divergent histories and distinct survival strategies rather than from malice. Frame debate as a laboratory, not a battlefield. Set rules for curiosity and require that critique arrive with an offer to repair. This posture turns contention into problem-solving and keeps relationships intact when stakes are high. Groups that practice repair become resilient. Teach people how to fail with dignity. Create spaces where experiments can be attempted and results examined without shaming. When risk is bounded by compassion, creativity expands. Celebrate attempts even when they yield partial gains. These moments produce durable confidence that sustains long campaigns of change and turns fear of error into a culture of inquiry. Balance outreach with boundaries. Your generosity will attract sincere allies and those seeking leverage. Discernment is a muscle that must be exercised. Invite contributions, then test them. Allow commitment to deepen over time. Roots grown patiently hold under pressure. Gratitude functions as currency. Name exact contributions. When someone shifts trajectory to support another, vocalize the impact. Specific praise trains attention and models a culture where acts are noticed and remembered. Over time, a ledger of kindness rewrites cynicism into an expectation of reciprocity. As the circle expands, recognize that influence need not be centralized. Distribute responsibility and watch initiative multiply. Notice lighthouses in unlikely places. A neighbor who keeps vigil may become an advocate. A former skeptic may become the most persuasive emissary because their testimony carries authenticity. Encourage emergent leaders with honors that reinforce competence rather than inflate ego. Finally, envision this ring widening until its glow reaches neighborhoods that forgot trust. Picture shared meals across difference, arguments that end in agreements honoring dignity, and the slow transformation of institutions once blind to human cost. Your role is to tend to the local ring while trusting the contagion of care to spread. Small bands of steady hands create weather where storms leave soil richer. When you leave this part of the path, carry evidence of what collective practice yields. Store these proofs like seeds. In harder seasons, plant them in memory and recall how consistent acts alter the course of many lives. Then return to the circle, take up a light and pass it to the next person who hesitates at the threshold. You stand at the turning point where commitment becomes legacy, and what you have practiced in private now seeks a public form. The life you have tended in small gestures is ready to scale without spectacle. Begin with clarity, name the soil you will steward and the small next acts that will make it fertile. Let these acts be plain, repeatable, and compassionate. Discipline born from tenderness outlasts bravado. Hold fast to the boundary and hospitality at once. Protect the places that must remain quiet and invite those who hunger for warmth. You will learn that generosity framed by limits becomes sustainable giving. Teach others to tend their edges so that shared abundance does not exhaust the keepers of light. Model how failures are examined and then translated into new methods. Create a modest archive of attempts and outcomes. When discouragement whispers, consult that record. Proof of repair steadies faith. Encourage experiments whose downside is contained and whose upside invites collective learning. Train your ear to hear the difference between urgency and importance. Many demands wear drama like armor to compel attention. Meet them with questions that reveal timelines and alternatives. Turning panic into steps conserves courage and widens options. Invite apprentices. Identify people who have begun to show consistent care and give them responsibility that stretches without breaking them. Leadership is a distributed practice, not a relic of charisma. Mentoring others builds lateral strength that endures. Rehearse gratitude as a public act. When you specify how a contribution mattered, you reinforce reciprocity. Name precise outcomes and the people responsible. These acknowledgments are blueprints for future cooperation and small vessels of dignity. Keep practices that protect your inner source. Rituals do the work of memory and intention. Select a handful that anchor your mornings and evenings. Choose small practices that resist neglect, they scaffold your work. Expect that critics will sharpen as your influence grows. Some objections will be rooted in fear. Others will point to genuine blind spots. Discernment is required. Accept correction that aligns with your values and discard noise that seeks to diminish purpose. Respond with curiosity and adjust when needed. Design repair pathways in advance. Establish steps that follow misstep, acknowledgement, restitution, revised practice. Reliable repair invites risk and creative courage through predictable accountability. As your circle widens, decentralize decision-making. Create small units with clear aims and limited authority. Empower them to act within agreed parameters. Decentralization accelerates adaptation and honors local wisdom that centralized structures often overlook. Now observe a change in tone around you. The work acquires rhythm and a new vocabulary develops among those who share it. You will adopt rituals to begin meetings, honor successes, and close hard talks, rhythms that lower friction and build trust. Before you move on, receive a gentle summons. A recording will appear on your screen, a short film that carries practice into embodied motion. It holds meditations, ritual demonstrations, and stories of repair that rebuilt fragile places. Watch in a still space and allow the images to settle into muscle memory. If the message lands, subscribe to receive future transmissions and enable notifications so that new offerings arrive when they are released. Depart with a small kit of proofs. A list of enacted promises, a ledger of persons helped, and a seed of practice for the next month. Keep them as talismans reminding you that illumination grows from patient, faithful acts. Step forward now. Let what you build be useful, resilient, and kind. Move with humility and resolve, and remember that each day offers small openings to restore what was broken and to seed what will outlast you. Keep returning to work even when applause is absent. Onward.